Hey everyone, welcome back to Date in a Blink. Today we're hosting Joe and Sarah on their Blink date.
What is Date in a Blink, you ask? It's a 10-minute audio-only blind speed date experience. It's also a bit of a social experiment designed to move people beyond looks-based assumptions, curated profiles, and marathon messaging.
We at the Blink Date want dating to be fun and inspiring for Blinkers and hope this podcast inspires you to try new ways of meeting people and dating. Will our hand-picked matches find love on these Blink dates? Or will they say goodbye to each other after 10 minutes and never look back?
If you're new here, we're so happy you could join us. If you're a regular, we're so glad you've returned. Before we jump into today's Blink date, here's a quick word from our sponsors. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain a bit. It's totally free, and Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and lots of other podcasting platforms. Not only that, but it has creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. It also lets you make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make your podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
We're here on Date in a Blink today with Joe and Sarah. I'm going to let you two dive in, but in case it's helpful to get the conversation started, I'm going to leave you with this question. What's your favorite place you've ever been to?
Ooh, interesting. I'll let you go first. Do you have one?
Oh gosh, I think everything seems like a good place to have been since we haven't been anywhere in so long. But a friend of mine got married in Portugal a couple years ago, and because it was such a long trip to get over there, I did some solo travel before and after, and it was just a really awesome experience. And I had never been there before, and it kind of blew me away relative to other places in Europe. It was just, there was so much to see there. There was like the wine country in the north, and then the city of Lisbon, and then more kind of like tropical and warm in the south. So it was a lot to see in one trip, and I'm super grateful I got to go.
That's great. What was the best food, like the best dish that you had when you were there?
I'm going to answer that it was a drink, because there was some sort of cocktail that I'm going to not pronounce correctly, so I'll skip it. But there was like a really, really good kind of authentic cocktail that they have there that was so good, and I've never seen it replicated since.
Oh, that's great. Let's see. I haven't been too many places, and that kind of being, like you said, being stuck at home, like recently kind of made me realize that I need to like get out of the US more. But probably I would say Positano in Italy. One of the most like beautiful places I've like ever been. It's just, it's literally like a Johnny Depp romantic.
Yeah.
Like on the water.
What made you travel there, or like what brought you over there?
Well, like my family heritage is like, I'm Italian American, so most of my family's from Naples and Sicily. So half of it was always wanted to go back to the motherland, as they would say, and the other half was, as a kid, I was just kind of fascinated with like old like Roman, gods and cultures, just like a place basically that still has ruins from like, ages ago. I think it was just kind of fascinating to like see that stuff. And I always wanted to go to Pompeii, like the city destroyed by a volcano. That, as a kid, you hear that, you're like, that's crazy. They're still stuck in rocks, and then you go there and you're like, whoa, this is, it's like right under the volcano. It's like, it's right there. You're like, why'd you build houses here?
Right.
But it was beautiful. Have you ever been over there?
Yeah. Too? So I'm an architect by practice, and so our like study abroad programs through school were primarily in Rome, because that's kind of the epicenter of the beginnings of a lot of architecture, at least like Western architecture. So I was able to see it then, and then also that the Portugal trip I was mentioning, I did Cinque Terre, which is like the poor man's version of Positano, before. But it was just, it was so beautiful. Like we went swimming in the ocean every day, and like it's just such an amazing lifestyle. But it is kind of surprising I don't know how they built villages on the water like that. Like they would I feel like they would never do that now, you know?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's what I was like. I was talking to somebody that when we were over there when I was eating about like the houses. Yeah, because they're like built into the sides of the place,
Right.
pretty much. And there's one road that basically goes through the Amalfi Coast, like right around the coast, and it just goes through each town, and each town's like pretty small. It starts, I think it's Sorrento, and then it goes to like Positano, Amalfi, and there's a few others. I can't remember the names, but they're all just, one road. So they're pretty much, you just have to walk them. But like all the houses there, I was asking, I was like, how do you move here?
Yeah, exactly.
Gorgeous. And they're like, you can't, it's like almost impossible because you either have to be insanely rich or, most of the houses are just passed down from, family members.
Right. Once you're in, you're in.
You're in. Yeah. It's like, so, nobody's getting in there. And I was like, oh man.
I mean, just carrying my luggage like up and down the one road to get to the village was kind of brutal. So I can't even imagine having to like uproot and settle in or leave.
Yeah, I bet where when this all starts to kind of open up a little, where's like the first place you want to go?
So I've never been to Asia. Before living here, I was in New York, and so it was always like if you did international travel, it was just so much easier to go over to Europe. And so I've never been to Asia, but I would love to go to Tokyo, both for the food and for the architecture. And I've heard a lot about their kind of like city planning, I think is really kind of best in class. So that would probably be my next trip.
That's funny you say that. Like, sitting right next to me is a Lonely Planet Japan book and a Eat Like a Local in Tokyo.
No way.
That I just ordered probably I think over Christmas break, because I also too always wanted to go to Tokyo since I was a kid, and over like the break I was kind of like, what's stopping me? I'm just gonna go. So I started kind of research, and yeah, I think that's the first place I'd like to go.
No way. Have you been to Asia at all before?
No, I haven't really been out of like the US too much. It's it's just Italy, and I lived in Australia for a little bit in Melbourne.
Wow.
Southern
Melbourne. Is that how we say it?
Melbourne. Yeah, I got corrected by my
Day one.
coworkers who's from Australia right before I went there. He was like, "Do not call it Melbourne." I was like, "Okay,
yeah, you will stand out."
Yeah. So I've been saying it like that, but yeah, I haven't. That's still really the only places I've been, and I don't know how to vacation, and I started realizing that by sitting home. I'm like, I have this time I don't use. I use for like little weekend vacations, and I'm like why am I not taking 2 weeks and traveling places outside?
I know. I do hope that something that comes from this is the ability to work anywhere, and I'm hopeful that it will stick. Like right now, we can't really benefit from working anywhere because anywhere is limited to home. But I hope that in the future I could like work from Tokyo for 2 weeks and kind of settle in some other places without having to take time off.
So what do you say? Like architecture is mostly like what kind? Like I don't know too much about like. I mean, I know what it is, but I assume there's different times, like commercial or residential.
Yeah. So I was doing commercial architecture for about 8 years. So like lots of headquarters, like big companies. But when COVID hit, I kind of wanted to do something a little bit more mission driven than like designing for tech bros. So I switched to doing healthcare, which is a whole different world, and the stakes feel like way higher. But it's kind of a nice new challenge after all that time doing one kind of architecture.
Oh, that's cool. So what's that like? Hospitals or something?
Yeah, like hospitals, research clinics, academic institutions where they're doing research, labs. Like a local one, I'm not sure where in LA you are or if you're in LA, but the Children's Hospital in Orange County, for example, like how do you make that a fun experience? Not fun,
Yeah.
but like how do you make that an experience that's not super clinical and like intimidating to young kids?
No, yeah, I never really thought about that. Yeah, the difference between like, but I guess I feel like you walk into some hospitals and yeah, the architect
Be there, right?
feel like like creeped out or like
Yeah. Yeah. Like I hope that I can bring some of like the things that all these other companies were investing to make people want to stay at work. Like, how do you make it not so terrible to be in a hospital clinical setting if that's where you need to be?
Slides, lots of
Yeah,
slides,
exactly. Slides, ball pits.
ball pits.
Are you able to share quickly what you do or what?
Yeah, I do. I'm a visual effects artist in like the film industry, so mostly all your big superhero movies. Doing all the effects
Fun.
for that. Yeah, I'm kind of a big. I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd.
I think nerds are cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I've always wanted to. I was always a big comic book nerd as a kid, and I couldn't draw to save my life. But, I liked movies, so. I somehow stumbled into this and kind of, I'm putting my 2 cents into the nerd culture. So it made me happy.
That's awesome that you found a way to do something you love and like make a career out of it.
Yeah, I know it's great. I feel like it's a hard thing sometimes, getting paid for something you'd like to do.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have to go to school for, like, I'm guessing it was more about like learning the softwares and the programs, or was it like?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, yeah, I went to art school, got like a BFA in visual effects and animation, but yeah, it's mostly like theory and just kind of like it's all art, whether it's computer or not. So like what I do is mostly focused around photography. So.
At this point in the date, I jumped in to let them know that their date had come to an end and let them say their farewells. 10 minutes is just not enough, especially when people have such interesting things to say to each other. I was really interested about how Sarah works in architecture and how Joe works in visual effects. And some reason in my mind, I kept thinking about Godzilla, especially because next on their travel destination is Tokyo. So how fun would that be? Feels a little serendipitous, Maybe they could do some recreation. Tune in to the end of the season and we'll give you an update on how these dates went. That's all we've got for you today. Shoot us a message on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at The Blink Date or at Date in a Blink to let us know what you think. If you want to sign up to participate in Date in a Blink, visit our website at www.theblinkdate.com. In the meantime, thanks for joining for this episode. We hope you enjoyed listening and look forward to talking with you again next time.